Welcome to Vivid Talk Live. I am your host, Gwen Witherspoon. I'm the Principal and Chief Visionary Officer of Adam Red and Atlanta Branding Agency. I'm a brand strategist and a Better Life Coach. Vivid Talk Live is all about your personal and professional development. I am here to help you learn a fresh way of thinking and doing for all you were designed to build. You can watch live Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on your favorite social networks or on my website at gwenwitherspoon.com, where you will also find the replays. Now, tonight, I'm going to continue talking about engineering your corporate DNA. We're on part 3 of answering the question, how are you going to get it done? This has been a pretty in-depth teaching because productivity is probably one of the biggest challenges we face as entrepreneurs. So please introduce yourself in the comments. Your questions are welcome. Katrina and Ron are here helping me monitor the chat. And I want to thank you so much for joining. Please share the link to invite your friends, tell them about the replays, and then we're going to get into it right after this. Make sure you follow me, follow at Gwen Fuchsias on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Periscope, and on Gwen Witherspoon Coach on YouTube. So excited to have you guys here with me tonight. But okay, once again, before we do, I want to make sure you know about my website. Wrong page. There we go. And this is where you can find everything about me, all the replays you can watch live, everything. The last week's replay is always the first one, the big one at the bottom, and then you can click on the replays button. You can find all the social networks, everything you could ever want to know. It's going to be right there. So now, look, I got to jump into this because every week I'm always surprised at how much I talk, how long I go. But this really has been a pretty in-depth series of messages. I'm on the third one this episode, and I didn't expect it to go this long. And I was looking at it tonight thinking, oh man, am I really going to be able to finish it? Like I have two more steps in your action plan that we wanted to create. And I don't know if I mentioned it before. I know last week I talked about the fact that we are planning to do a Flip Productivity workshop by the end of the year. And Flip Productivity is the system that I've created just to help you plan, produce, and play. Plan your work, spend more time, or produce what you've planned and spend more time at play. And that's my goal. I want to help you learn how to live your life at play. And at play really is about being everything that you were designed to be and really enjoying the work that whatever you put your hands to. And if you do that, you know what they say, if you mix your avocation, this is old school, mix your avocation with your vocation, you'll never work a day in your life, all those things. And that's really, I think if you're doing the right kind of work with that you are uniquely suited for, that doesn't mean that you never have any trouble and it's never hard and you don't get exhausted or you don't even get overwhelmed. What it means is that the work that you're doing is producing not only externally, something that you're trying to build, but it's producing something in you. It's making you a bigger, better, more effective, more efficient, more capable, more just everything you want to be, right? It's helping you find and achieve the better life that you want. And that's why I call myself a better life coach, because I want to help you. I don't want to just coach you through your life, right? I want to help you get to the better life. Like whatever you think better is, that's what I want to help you get to. But spoiler alert, I think that you get to better by finding out who you are and what you're called to build. And I think when you invest your life in that, that's when you find the better life. Okay. So what I'm teaching you now, we're going through of this principle that I'm developing called engineering your corporate DNA. Because if your corporation, if your company is like a human, legally the U.S. government, the United States government considers a corporation an entity, a separate entity from you. So if we use that idea, that analogy, then if we want to engineer the DNA of this company that you are creating, this person that you are developing, right? So that you can establish relationships with other entities, and that would be your customers, your clients, your audience, right? So in that process, the first step is strategy. So we're in that phase. This is what we're talking about now. That's why it's taking me a little bit longer, because I think what we often do, and I may have mentioned this as well before, but I think what we do as entrepreneurs, we decide we want to do something, right? We want to make something. I want to sell tennis balls, right? And I can go and find all these different places where I can get the tennis balls from wholesale, or I can figure out I have this special system for creating tennis balls and I'm going to make the best balls ever, and I'm going to get a patent. And, so we'll spend all our time and energy spending money on all those things, like completing all the tasks that we need to start that business. But oftentimes we do not spend any time strategically really designing what that company is going to be like. That's when you're building a brand. And so all the brands that we hear about, that's what they're doing, right? There are companies who, again, I've said this before, there are companies that are making a lot of money, even millions of dollars, maybe even billions, but they're not founded on any core personality, or no, they're not designing themselves. It may be sound structurally, but they're not designing something that's changing the culture per se. So when you build a brand, the brand changes culture. Brands impact, like brands help define people. And so that's what I'm talking about. I want to help you create whatever it is you're building. Build it from the mindset of the fact that you're developing a brand. You could be starting a nonprofit. You could buy somebody else's franchise, and then you've kind of got their brand built in, and you can just follow their pattern. But what if you were approaching your company, what you're trying to build? What if you approached that as if you were trying to franchise it, as if it was going to be a global multi-billion-dollar corporation and a brand? So that's what we're doing. And in order to do that, that doesn't come by accident. You have to do some thoughts, some deep thinking, and you got to take very clear action. And so this thinking and doing, thinking and being, thinking and action, I want to help you master that, because that's all of our biggest challenge. Okay. So what we're talking about what we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks, the engineering your corporate DNA, I think we're on week 5 talking about that in general. But just specifically in terms of answering this question, how are you going to get it done? Now, this isn't the stage where you figure out exactly how you're going to get it done. This is the stage where you are strategizing around how you're going to get it done, right? You're taking inventory assessment. You're thinking this thing through. Like, what would that take? And as you go through the process and you actually design it, which is the next stage, then you're starting to pick specific methods and ways that you're going to approach it so that you can get it done. But this isn't where you're really doing it. And I was thinking about before I started, there is a difference between being efficient and being effective, right? I've heard it before, and I remember the first time somebody said it. You know how you say, "Oh, pardon me, excuse me." I resemble that remark, but I was a little like, whatever, because it really did hit me, right? Because I like being effective. I like being efficient. I like getting stuff done, making it happen. And if you are very results oriented, probably if you're trying to start a business from scratch, or if you are an entrepreneur, you probably have a little bit of that in you as well. Very results oriented. And I've had clients like that who can get things done, boom, 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 and they're not slowing down because they got to make stuff happen. Well, I think we always have to ask ourselves, am I being efficient, or am I being effective? And neither one, I mean, both of them are good things. So this is not an indictment in any way, but it is something to think about. So I looked up the meaning of the word efficient. So efficient means achieving maximum productivity with minimum wasted effort or expense. Isn't that what you want? Don't you want to do that? I want to make the most amount of money that I possibly can with the least amount of effort. Don't you? Isn't that what we all want? But we think that that's kind of the end all and do all, be all if we get to that, right? We think, I don't know, that we feel like that's more, I think that's very gratifying, because if you have a task in front of you, it's big or small, and you get that task done, it feels good. It's like you feel very gratified at having finished it. And so if you are that kind of personality, you enjoy that, and you get to say at the end of a day or month or week or whatever, hey, I did all these things, you feel really good. Like the longer the list and the more stuff you can check off, the more accomplished you feel. But so many people have said just because you're checking off all the boxes doesn't mean those are the boxes you should be checking, right? So effective is to be successful in producing a desired result. Isn't that good? So if you did you hear what I said before? I said I'm results oriented. So it's easy to confuse completing tasks and being efficient with getting results. I'm going to say that again. It's easy to confuse. Let's see if I remember what I said. It's easy to confuse getting tasks done, checking off boxes, with actually being effective, like getting results. Like I said, I'm results oriented, but if you are results oriented and you think that checking a box is a result, that's not really true. It's almost like that's a deception. The more boxes, like the busier you are and the more stuff you finish, that doesn't equal results necessarily. So being effective is being successful in producing a desired result. So productivity is not getting more things done. It's getting more of the right things done so that you get the results that you're looking for. But that's the key now. That's the key question. That's why we need to spend time engineering our corporate DNA. That's why it's taking me all these weeks now to talk about this first phase, which is strategy. It's about, and you got to ask and answer the question and gather information so that you can have a framework to build on, as opposed to just going out, checking off boxes and getting things done. Okay. And so I love this definition, especially because of the way it ends. So you're going to see what I mean in a minute. So effective, if something is deemed effective, it means it has an intended or expected outcome or produces a deep, vivid impression, right? So making your vision vivid is about making a deep impression. It's like you can take the most complex thing, and if you can break it down to its most essential elements to communicate as effectively as possible, and people can run by it, hastily see it and catch it, that's vivid and that's effective. And so you cannot build a company, a brand that is vivid, that is effective, if you don't do the strategic work, if you don't figure out ahead of time. So of course, tonight's subject is really focusing around how you're going to get it done, but you've got to take all the other weeks together, those last 5 weeks together especially, and really use that information as the basis for your strategic plan, your corporate DNA strategic plan. Okay. And so I told you every week you can know what's going on in my life by what I talk about. So tonight, the last two things we're going to talk about in the create an action plan vein. How are you going to get it done? You need to create an action plan, and we need to create a plan for 6 things. How many fingers is that? 6 things: purpose, people, product, profit, process, and promotion. So tonight we're talking about process and promotion. Process is everything. Makes my soul sing. I just hear the angels, right? Even as I say it, right? And because this week I spent some time creating some order this weekend. So to my husband's delight, I cleaned out a closet with a bunch of his stuff in it. So by the time it was over, spoiler alert, he was like, "You're throwing away all my stuff." Of course I was not. However, the order that has resulted has just made my soul sing. I told Katrina that creating order makes me feel, how did I say it? Hopeful and invincible. And I realize, I believe that I'm not really that different. And even if you don't mind a little clutter, even if you're one of those people that has a bunch of piles and you know exactly where everything is, wrong with the spoon. If you're one of those people, you still have order to that because that's the only way you could know where things are. But if you had a situation where somebody created a dream space for you, that would be exciting to you as well, because it has order, right? And you think about the best hotel you've ever been to, or the fanciest house you've ever visited, or your favorite luxury retailer. What is it about all of those things that it makes the most impact on you? First and foremost is because they've created order, right? If you go into a luxury hotel and they greet you at the door, they come and pull you don't have to touch your bags. They take everything upstairs for you. You know, it's not when you go to a luxury hotel, it's not that really, it's that different ultimately, right? The elements are the same. They have beds, closet, they have restaurants, they have a pool, they have, all the things that every other hotel has. But what's the difference between Motel 6 and the Ritz-Carlton? It's the order that they've created. It's a system that they've designed intentionally with you in mind. So that's what we're doing when we're engineering our corporate DNA. We are intentionally creating order for our clients, for our audience, for our customers, so that they can form a deep and lasting relationship with us, and the work that we put in to create the order for them is the thing that makes that vivid impression. Okay, so that's my commercial for why you have to do the work. And I have to say also, creating that order this weekend, because I successfully completed 4 Fridays not working, 4 Fridays with a day off, which it was traumatic at first. I went from talking about being on house arrest to justifying why I couldn't do that every Friday to like that. Now I ended up going, oh, that wasn't bad at all. Now I can figure out something else I could do if that's productive and effective with that time. And so I ended up the last weekend of that 4-week stretch creating a bunch of order in our home, and my husband and I went out and did some things together. So it just was great. But when I talk about creating a vision for every area of life, taking the time to invest in creating a vision in that area, just creating order in a different way, really catapulted me into this week so that I could be more effective. And so from a business standpoint, I've been creating order. And that speaks to the next step, process. So I didn't look up the word process, but I love creating order. And I love talking about process. And when you really get into business development and planning and real life business training, not MBA training. I have an MBA, and a lot of the stuff, most of the things that I deal with on a daily basis to actually build my company is stuff that's never even addressed in a formal business setting. And so, but in real life business, what you hear over and over and over is about processes and systems and how we have, and workflows. That's a popular word now, workflows. And we want to know about our customer journey. What's your sales cycle? We talk about sales funnels. All those things are processes and systems. And so you have to take time to create a plan for your process. Okay. And the first process is customer acquisition. There's 4 of them that I'm going to talk about. Ron says a systemic series of actions directed to some end. Hey, thank you. There we go. It's a series of actions directed to some end, right? A process. And so you have to create a series of actions directed at acquiring customers. How are you going to get them, right? I'm not talking about how you're going to keep them yet, but we're going to talk about how you're going to get them. And many times what we do is I hear all over and over small business owners say, well, we rely on word of mouth. Of course, we want word of mouth. That's the most valuable way to get business, is somebody else vouching for you. But if all you're doing is depending on people around you that you already know to vouch for you, it's going to take you a long time to build a business that can sustain itself without you, and a business that you could sell if you ever wanted to, right? So you have to have. That's when we talk about lead generation, and I've often been intimidated by this by sales lingo, the whole idea of generating leads and creating a pipeline and like all of that. I've never been attracted to that system, right? I've always felt like I just felt intimidated by it. Like I always kind of run away from it. But logically, when you back up and I get out of that overwhelmed, intimidated mode and stop worrying about what I don't know and what I don't understand, and just logically look at it, how you can't get a customer if you're not trying to, right? Like people typically don't walk up to you. We hear stories every once in a while where somebody was doing something naturally and somebody said, hey, you should sell that. Can I buy that? Will you do that for me? And that started a business. But then even then, once they started the business, they still had to figure out how they were going to continue to get more customers. Like you still have to get a plan, right? So you want to figure out how are you going to acquire your customers? And there are a number of options. So there's no really right or wrong way. It's the way that works for you. And you may not want a flood of customers at first because you may not necessarily understand how you can manage a big group of people at first. But you certainly can create some processes for how you're going to acquire customers and start testing the waters and creating, like building a system so that you can continue to do that, right? Now, I have been kind of interchangeably using the word system and process. And I was wondering before I came, and I'm sure I've talked about this before too, because it felt familiar when I was doing it. But what's the difference between a system and a process? We talked about the difference between being efficient and being effective. What's the difference between a system and a process? And I looked those up. So a system is a combination of parts forming a complex whole. A process is all of the related activities inside the system that make it function. And the one big example that I got when I was looking this up was think about your transit system in your city. It is a transit system, right? It is a complex combination of parts, and all those things together, the trains, the buses, the bikes, rental bikes, like all those things form this public transit system. But there's a process inside of that system, of related activities that may actually make that system function. So if you had the rails and the buses and all those things, but you didn't have the bus stops, the ticket process, the purchasing process, the transfer process, those activities that you do to get from one place to the other, right? If you didn't have those processes within that system, it would not work. So we have to create a system for how we're going to acquire customers, and all the processes that it's going to take to get that done. So this week I created a client journey map. I love making charts. Like when I try to think through ideas, I think last week Renee asked, how do you remember all this? I remember this because I make a lot of charts. I make charts, and I have this ability to see parts and connect them and find connections and relationships between different elements. And I get real excited because I get a chance to create order. So when I can create some order and explain, I'm a teacher. I love helping people understand complex ideas and trying to make them simple. And sometimes I start out and I see all the complexity and I feel good about it, and I can see how all the connections are made. And what I'm learning is how to kind of break it down. I make charts too, but I can't find them. See, that's why you need flip productivity. So that's the same thing. I have a system for that too. But you just want to make sure that you have systems and processes in place for everything. And I promise, by the time you it feels very complicated when you're pulling it all together, and it can feel very overwhelming. But I think when you start bringing order in small ways and kind of building on that, you're going to find that you have created a system for yourself that works. And then there's always outside influences. So no system is going to work forever, right? Because there are things that are going to be happening around outside of that system that are impacting how it works, right? So if you think of what happened to all of us this year, so we have an economic system in our country, in the world, right? We have a capitalist system, and that system works by all of us going out in day to day, doing all the things we do and spending money. And what happened externally that all of a sudden impacted that system? We had the coronavirus pandemic hit us. So now we can't function the same way. So that jacks up the system. Doesn't mean the system still exists, but now it has to adjust, right? And now there's other processes. Instead of going out, now we are using Zoom. Instead of, some people are having their groceries delivered, right? Instead of just walking out the door, we all have to have a mask. So those are processes that are impacting this system, this economic system. Does that make sense? So the next process that you have to think about is distribution. How are you going to distribute? And when we think of distribution, oftentimes, the first thing you're going to think about is a product, right? How are you going to, if you make a phone, if you make, a mug, how are you going to distribute that, get it out to people? And, nowadays we have so many options. We have all these on-demand printing services and these fulfillment houses that'll do a lot for you, and you don't have to house inventory, but that's still a distribution system. And you've got to think through, how are you going to get it done? Are you using the mail service? Are you using only digital technologies? How are you going to communicate? Are you using social media? There are a lot of people, we hear all the success stories of people who are building these multi-million-dollar businesses on social media. We see examples of that on late night television or daytime TV. We see people who have gone viral on YouTube, and they're representing products. They're just giving their opinion about other people's products, and all of a sudden they're making money. So we hear about all these, but those are all distribution systems, really. They're ways that we get the message out, how we get whatever it is that we sell, how we get the product distributed. So, in this case with Vivid Talk Live, I'm distributing my message using this live streaming platform, right? So it's a distribution system. So how are you going to distribute whatever it is that you are making, whatever it is you're building, right? And then the other piece is fulfillment. I touched on that a little bit. So just because I have a system, I have this distribution system for doing the show, that doesn't mean I've necessarily fulfilled my objective, right? I'm actually, or like even with a t-shirt, right? If you can have a company for making t-shirts, and you can have a way to distribute the shirts, but then if somebody places an order, how are you going to get the shirt to them, right? How are you going, like and I'm using that example because I know, like with the on-demand t-shirt companies, they will You can distribute it on your website using their technology, synced to your system, your website on your own digital platform. Then the order goes directly to them. They fulfill it. They take that, process the order, mail it out on your behalf with your logo on it, right? So they fulfilled it for you. And so you have to think about in your situation, what is it that you need to fulfill? So how are you going to get customers? What's your process for getting your customer, for acquiring your business? Then once you have them, how are you going to distribute? Really, distribution also is about scope. So how do you distribute your message to more people, and then your message or your product? And then fulfillment is, how are you actually going to deliver on that promise to them? Okay, because that's different. And there's a bunch of different ways to do fulfillment. You might create your own product at home, but then somebody else, you ship it to a warehouse and they fulfill it for you, right? So you're not actually placing your own orders and putting all, packaging everything up. There's so many different ways to do it. And with my Flip Productivity System, I'm still basically doing all of the fulfillment myself. But I'm looking at ways, how am I going to grow? Because I want to acquire more customers. I want to distribute it to a broader audience. And I want to figure out now, how am I going to actually fulfill that if I'm going to get it to more people, right? Instead of just me. So you want to create a plan for that. Then the other piece is support. So the process is what kind of support are you going to provide? Oftentimes what we do in the whole customer journey, the life cycle of that client, what we do is we feel like the sale is the holy grail. Like if I get the sale, that's the ultimate. And the more sales I get, the happier I get. But what we often fail to do is figure out what kind of support are we going to provide to that customer once we get them? Because that's where the relationship is formed. That's where the value is really created. I was telling my sister and my friend earlier today, I said, look, I'm not falling for the internet okie doke anymore, shopping on social network. How many have seen all these ads that are coming through? I know I'm getting tons of them, fashion ads all through Instagram. I fell for the okie doke a few years ago. I ordered like 3 things in the same day on different little ads, and they were cute and they were cheap. I was like, oh, I want that. And I ordered 3 things, came from China a few months later, and they were horrible. They were nothing like the picture. They were just trash. And there was no kind of support. no answer. There was one email I found, the email that sent me my receipt and saying that accepting my order. I replied to that saying, hey, I want a refund. Never got a response. Okay. But so you have to think about, how are you going to support people when they place the order? What happens if they just don't want it? What happens if they don't like it? What happens if it's, if it's defective? What are you going to do? I know when I used Amazon has impressed me so many times, because there's been a couple of times where I had a product that was either broken or something happened to it, and they'll send you a new one before you send the other one back. And as long as you send the other one back within 30 days, you still get your money. And so they don't make you wait. What fabulous support is that, right? So you have to think through, what's my process going to be for how I support my customers? What kind of support do I want to provide? Sometimes though, what we do in the interest of providing great service, we overserve our clients and we do too much and we go too far, and we just give them too much for what it is. Remember, we talked about pricing, and pricing, you've got to determine if you have a low price product, then people would expect to get a little less support, right? Or a little less service as a result, because you got to make up the difference. If you have a higher price product, we expect more service because there's more margin in that and you have more time to invest in giving that. But you have to figure out what's going to be the best way. What kind of support do the customers that I'm trying to acquire, what kinds of support do they really need? And then how am I going to deliver that in the highest quality, best price, the most, most economical way, most effective way? You could be efficient. Again, I can check all the boxes. Hey, here's a link to my, to frequently asked questions. But, thank you. Yes, bam, bam, wham, bam. Thank you, ma'am. Right. I'm done with you. But then is that effective? Does that get the result you're looking for? It goes back to that. The first one about purpose, your mission, your vision, and your values. Is the support that you're offering, is that consistent with your values? Because then it's effective. Otherwise, you can stick a piece of paper. I got this in one of the orders we got today, and it just gave me instructions. I thought it was good. I didn't expect a whole lot from it, but that's good enough, right? For what it was. Maybe what you are doing requires more, or less, depending on what your overall objective is. Then the other, process. You want to create a plan for customer acquisition, distribution, fulfillment, and support. Okay. And then the last step in creating an action plan. And clearly, these are not all the steps, but I think just for this phase of your planning, of engineering your corporate DNA, these are some great 6 top line things to consider. Okay. So the last is promotion. And I don't know about you, but I think a lot of us fall down on that, especially because oftentimes we'll do marketing activities, and those marketing activities don't feel like they produce a lot. Oftentimes, you do a post, you spend all this time creating all the graphics, all the messaging, plan it all out. I know I program my social media management systems, and I get it all together, and it's all perfect and beautiful and wonderful, and everybody should love everything I'm saying, and then it feels like crickets. But oftentimes we're not getting the results that we want as fast as we want to. It's always going to take longer because you think of all the noise going on around all of us every day. So it's oftentimes these are activities that are very difficult to do. If you think back to, are you efficient or effective? So you can efficiently get your product done and get it out there and put together even a promotion telling somebody you have it. Maybe send an email. You can be really efficient about that. But maybe you weren't effective because you didn't send enough emails. Maybe you had too much information in your email. Maybe you did not consider your target audience, better, ahead of time so that you could speak their language and really speak to exactly what it was they needed, right? So that's being effective. You can complete promotional activities. You can send an email. You can post on social media. You can even make direct phone calls to people. But those things, just completing those tasks doesn't mean you have effectively reached your result, the result that you want, right? So that's why you have to have a plan for your promotion, an ongoing plan that really lays a foundation for the development of your business. Remember, we're engineering your corporate DNA, and we're only in the strategic phase at this point, okay? And so promotion has 4 elements: branding, I said traditional media, social media, and marketing. And we use all those terms interchangeably as well. But they are kind of separate steps that we need to consider. So branding, I've said before, is not just about how things look, but how they function. What is the experience? Branding is about the story you're telling that makes your client, your customer, the hero in the story, and it's not all about you. And branding is about the impression you make in somebody's mind about you, what you are doing. It's about you meeting their needs in a way that nobody else can do, or a way that really serves them. Branding is about the experience that you create for them over and over and over and over again. So you might have great colors. Everything might be, all matched up. You can see with vivid, somebody said they like that I dress in my corporate colors every week, right? So I got my colors banging, all these things, and I can do that over and over again. But also I want to create an experience. So the colors and the overall approach, all of those things are part of creating that, making that impression. So every time I show up consistently, this way, every time you show up, your customers' experience, your clients' experience with you, every time it's consistent, you are branding on their mind and their heart about who you are, who your corporate DNA, the person that your business is. You're branding that on them, and they want to have a relationship. Think about the last time you got a great pair of shoes. Like, how did you feel? Like, oh my God, you probably wanted to skip out of the store and you couldn't wait. I know when I get something great and new, I want to wear it around the house, even if I can't go anywhere, because it just makes you feel, it serves your life so well, right? So your brand needs to really solve a problem and to really connect with your audience. And so you need to create a plan for branding. And so many mom and pops or small companies, we cut so many corners. Clearly when you don't have huge reserves of money, it feels like you can't do certain things, but really it's conceptually understanding what branding really is, and just step by step employing those principles in your business at every step of the way. And it doesn't mean that you have everything all set up and perfect from the beginning. It just means you are starting to create a plan for how you are going to address that in your life and business. I mean, you could say, you could even start out with a logo that you hate. And if you are consistently using that logo, you're still building a brand. And how many times have you've seen brands refresh their whole visual identity? It happens all the time. How many times have you had a makeover? That's simply a rebrand, right? So I don't look exactly and dress exactly the way I did in kindergarten or in grade school or in high school. Like, I've grown, I've changed, I've moved. Like, I will make adjustments, and that's what you are going to do with your company and your brand. So don't beat yourself up if you have this grand vision for what your brand should be and you're not there, but you can still build a brand even when you can't necessarily do everything full circle the way you want to. Again, it's about the total package. It's about the experience. Somebody else, if you're sharing effectively who you are, then that's going to move you forward and you are building a brand. But somebody else who's thinking about that, they're communicating more effectively. Maybe everything's not together as perfect. They might be selling and doing it when you are not focused on that, right? So my point is, bottom line, we want to consider our brand, but I don't want you to beat yourself up because you can't get everything done exactly the way you think you should do it, or the way you've envisioned. Because the point is that you have a plan first for how you're going to get there, and you just start making that incremental progress. That's what I really want you to focus on. And so then again, the next piece is that creating an action plan for traditional media. Now I wrote in /publicity. And maybe that's it, because whatever the traditional media is, maybe it's not like you're trying to go on TV or you're trying to, I think digital is where it is, where it's at for all of us as small business owners. But still, that's a crowded marketplace, and that's like traditional media on steroids, because there's so much you can do and there's so much access to people. But so then that increases the increased capability also comes with an increased level of responsibility, which can be feel overwhelming as well. But you still want to create a plan for that. So maybe you're not in TV and radio, but maybe you are going after. Maybe you're not advertising on TV and radio, but maybe you want to go after a more traditional publicity, maybe some local publicity, or there's so many different ways you can do it. Maybe you decide, I'm not going to do any of that at all. So that's a plan too, to decide not to. So you want to look at, how am I going to promote myself using traditional media as well? I think we shouldn't sleep on opportunities like that. Was recently in a workshop, and the presenter was just talking about all the different ways that you can, as a local person that don't even have to be a national celebrity, don't have to be even established business. There's so many different ways that you can get social proof even through traditional media. If you just take some really basic steps. So I think creating a plan for how you're going to do that is going to really be important. The other piece is social media. You should not post in social media without a plan. just like you shouldn't spend money without a plan. You should, like, having an idea of how you want to use that network, understanding first and foremost how that network was built, what it's for. Facebook is for friends and family. Instagram is for sharing pictures. Twitter has grown into more of a news kind of a network, right? And a news channel. LinkedIn is for business. It's for professionals. LinkedIn, they're not talking about what they ate and all that like they are on Facebook. Why? Because that's more professionals and business. So if you're going to post in those networks, you need to have a plan for how you're going to use them in line with what their purpose is, right? So you want to create a plan. And then the last is a plan for marketing. So it feels like, so you can do social media marketing. That's different. That's one thing. You can do traditional media marketing, but marketing in general is about how you are fitting into the marketplace. And we've talked about that before as well. How are you fitting in with everything else, your price point? So making that overall plan for how you are promoting your business, how you're building it, that's marketing. So I think we're done with that part. How are you going to get it done? And again, how you're going to get it done is about creating a strategy, a loose, free, easy breezy plan. Not I don't want you to put yourself under all this pressure that, oh my God, that's a lot. It is a lot, but you can just bite it off one piece at a time. And that's why I wanted to attempt to organize it in a way that just help you. You can remember purpose, people, product, profit, process, promotion. So even if you don't remember all the other categories underneath, if you just write those 6 things down and say, okay, how I got to create a plan for my purpose. What do I believe my purpose is for this business? I need to create a plan for people. How am I going to attract people? How am I going to communicate with people? How am I going to recruit my team? How am I going to communicate who I am? How am I going to communicate with those people? Products, where does my product fit, and what kinds of price should I charge based on what everybody else is doing? How am I going to how am I going to stand out in the middle of all of that? And how am I going to profit? How am I going to make money doing this? Right? If you just answer that question, if you say, look, okay, now, and what's going to be the process for me to get that done? And figure it out, like step by step. And it's so funny, like when you really think about it. I think somebody asked about, like, how do you write your name? Like if you wrote down all the steps that it took to actually write your name, it would be amazing. You think about all the things that you do without even thinking, because now it's a part of you. But we want to design that process. You design your process so that it just become natural and it's a part of what you do. And then you can easily train other people how to do that. That's how you grow and build a business. And then the last, promotion. Just how are you going to get it out? How are people going to know that you actually exist? Okay. So you can do it because you were born to produce. And so I want to thank you so much again for joining me, and make sure you follow me in social media. Follow at Gwen Fuchsius on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Periscope, and at Gwen Witherspoon Coach on YouTube. And once again, you can watch I think I got my website up this time. You can watch the replays and oh, it's not showing, huh? Let's see. Let's do that one more time. Whatever. You can watch the replays and let's do corner logo. You can watch the replays and find out everything you need to know about Gwen Witherspoon Coach at gwenwitherspoon.com. Thank you so much. I will see you next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye-bye. Tell your friends, please. Let them know we're here. Good night.